TPN, welcome back to the Pilot Network podcast. I'm Matt, co-host of the show, and like we always do, we try to bring on guests that are entrepreneurial, like to look at the pilot side hustle, are active in the aviation world, and also really doing something to further this industry. And today is no different. We've got Rob Wright on the show from Pilot Pipeline. Rob, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Matt. Excited to be here. Big fan, longtime listener, obviously first time guest.
Yeah, no, it's always fun to have someone on the show for the first time, and obviously, we do have a lot of recurring guests, but you've been a valuable member of the Pilot Network for a long time, and now you've kind of you're working on your own entrepreneurial venture here, and I just wanted to chat with you and kind of see where that was going and what it was. Before we get into that, though, do you want to tell us a little about yourself, how you got where you are, and what you do in terms of aviation?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a military aviator. I know that a lot of the TPN listeners are as well, so I can connect in that way. I fly helicopters, UH-60 Blackhawks for the Army. I graduated flight school back in 2016 at Fort Rucker, Alabama. And before that, I commissioned out of West Point, so the United States Military Academy. That's where I commissioned out of, and I've been in Army aviation, for the last 6 or 7 years here. So that's what I've been doing and planning on continuing to do as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we don't get enough helicopter pilots on here, because I know powered lift is a huge subset of aviation, and especially in the military, but even outside, oil companies and private charter, it's a big part of aviation, and even law enforcement, especially, and the Coast Guard. Powered lift is a very underrepresented aspect of this community, and we're glad to have you on. Thank you.
Yeah, shout out to the rotor heads out there. So we fly things. It's a little different, but also I'm also a private fixed wing airplane, single engine land, single engine sea, and I'm going to continue to work on gaining more certificates on the GA fixed wing side as well, because I love aviation. And like you were mentioning, some of the outside job opportunities that there are, there's EMS, so aeromedical pilots. And currently right now I'm stationed in Germany. That's what I'm doing. So in addition to, as our military users would know, I work in a staff office as well as flying. So doing that dual role that commissioned officers in the Army have to do quite often, but I also fly as a medivac or aeromedical evacuation pilot and do installation medevac coverage here in Grafenwehr for the training units. So it's really fun to get to do kind of your mission, even when you're not, say, deployed or downrange, the medevac. And that's something that I hadn't done before. I was a traditional lift or assault pilot, basically a glorified Uber driver of the sky, as you'll hear a lot of military guys refer to it as.
Absolutely. So one thing, I'm a fixed wing pilot only. I've never had any power lift helicopter experience, although that is on my list. Maybe you can share with us some things, since you've done both, and I'm sure they take an entirely different type of skill set with some similarities and overlap. But for those Army pilots and even Air Force helicopter pilots that are looking to transition out of the military and into something else, present hiring environment aside, what are some things that you encourage those people to think about when they are getting ready to look at fixed wing only, or make that transition? Is there anything that stands out in your mind as important?
In terms of if they are looking to fly on the commercial side, obviously I haven't made that jump. And right now my career path looks like it's staying in the military. Granted, I have done a lot of research and talked to a lot of people and have done fixed wing flying myself. But there's a lot of benefits that our military members can use, from GI Bill to credentialing assistance to vocational rehab. There's all these different basic ways to fund, and there's a ton of really good flight schools that have specifically what they call rotor transition programs, or RTPs. And before the pandemic, those were actually funded by the airlines themselves. So there's a lot of good things. In terms of the controls, what I would say is different is, as a rotor guy, we're always used to pulling aft on the cyclic and kind of going into an approach with our nose up. And when you're in fixed wing, you've got to keep your speed up. So there's a tendency for us to feel like we're going right at the runway when you go into the fixed wing side of things. That's just an interesting difference. We're always pitched back versus kind of coming in and then flaring at the end. A lot of people that fly both could probably tell you. Other than that, you just got to fly for about 5 hours until you hit what we call the hover button, and you can actually hold a stable hover. And that's one of the best feelings in the world.
Yeah, I'll bet that's something that a fixed wing pilot, that's probably the biggest difference right there. That hover is pretty cool stuff. So, your experience in the Army has well prepared you to take a look at other aspects of aviation, and then I know you've got some entrepreneurial background. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your background in terms of business and that aspect of what you do as well? Kind of, we'll call that the pilot side hustle part of your life there.
Yeah, so pilot side hustle. I've always had a side hustle. I assume, like many listeners, and I know you specifically, Matt, is, from a young age, I always had a side business, whether that was mowing or doing something. And I always thought for myself that I was going to be in business. That's what I was going to do. And it wasn't till I was at the academy and we went out for a summer training that I flew in the back of a Chinook, and I thought, this is pretty cool. So I really started looking into it. Eventually, I went to Fort Bragg as my cadet summer troop development. I shadowed a officer in an aviation unit, kind of fell in love with it, branched it, and it's just really grown on me since. So if you are a listener thinking about becoming a pilot and you're in your pilot stages, don't ever think that just because since 3 years old you weren't looking up at the sky saying, I'm going to fly big heavy metal since day one. That's no big deal. I didn't either. So I'm kind of a latecomer into that, and I didn't grow up thinking this is going to be my career path, but I've grown into it, and the challenges and the ability to be an expert really appeal to that entrepreneurial side that I have, in that, hey, you can get a craft and you can hone it. And that's what I love about aviation. You can actually determine how good you are because you're measured against a set of criteria. And I think that's the same in business, because you have a net profit margin. So I've started a series of businesses, and my latest one is called Pilot Pipeline. And it's a software business, but what it really is it's an automated career management tool, essentially, for pilots. And what it's designed to do is meet any pilot or prospective pilot at any experience level, whether they've flown or whether they have 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 hours. And it's going to help them get to their dream job, or discover new paths that they maybe haven't already. And that's just because I have fallen in love with aviation. So my goal is to get more people into it. And so I think that Pilot Pipeline can do it. It's non-discriminatory. We're trying to push people into the military. We're trying to push people into the commercial side. It's whatever you want to do based on the time that you want to spend, based on the money, the resources, and your goals. So we kind of consolidate and bring in all the information that someone would want and could spend dozens and dozens of hours reading online and on message boards into one comprehensive automated solution that really helps you figure out what you're going to do, especially if you're like me and you have no aviation background when you started. So that's kind of the latest thing that I'm working on.
Absolutely. So, and one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show and just kind of talk about Pilot Pipeline and what you're working on is because at TPN, we initially started out just a small group of Air Force pilots who were looking to go to the airlines. And at that point, the vast majority were looking to go to the majors, the Legacy or the UPS and FedExes of the world. And as we've grown as a group, we've really started to look at the entire arc of a pilot's career. So whether it's the teenager who is just thinking about a pilot career and getting started, and whether the military is a viable option in the Guard, Reserve, or active duty, all the way through a legacy airline captain who's retiring after 35 years because the FAA says they have to, but still has a couple of good years of flying left in them. And so what we're really trying to do is support the entire arc of a pilot's career. And like RTAG does, the powered lift and rotorhead community definitely has things to contribute. And whether they're going to Milt ATP and working through their multi-engine and getting their ATP through that program and that Chris Kresge is putting together, or they're spending some time in Part 135 flying some charter type stuff for Part 91. And I think what your resource does is it helps plot out that path, because there's everything's available online. You can Google just about anything and find that information. The FAA has great resources, but it's almost a curse of abundance, because you hit that Google button and there's thousands and thousands of things. And what you've done is you've distilled that down into a very discernible pipeline or path for everyone along that process. And that was something that here at TPM we were really drawn to, and we were excited to kind of advise a little bit along the way, and hopefully get to work with you in the future. And full disclosure for the network, we're not affiliated in any sort of business relationship right now, but we really love what you're doing in terms of supporting the aviation community, and we're excited to see this develop over time. I think I know you have a product demo that you'd like to show. Is that something that you're prepared to do now?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the listeners that are listening to this on whatever service, TPN's also putting this on the YouTube channel. So I'm going to talk it through in a way that you can listen and you'll understand the features. But if you want to go check that out on the YouTube channel, make sure to check out TPN on YouTube, and Matt will direct you to that.
Absolutely. I'll make sure to have a link in the show notes there as well. So.
All right. So with Pilot Pipeline, the main thing once you log in that you're going to see is once you register, you're going to answer a series of questions that helps us get to know where you're at in experience level. And based on that, we're going to generate pathways for you. Right now, you can see we have the airplane civilian pathway, and it's going to give you a general time, cost, and earnings, and let you know which one's the fastest or the least expensive, or what we call the most profitable. Basically the most earnings in your lifetime, because you set a desired retirement age, and then we calculate the rest based on industry standards. You can expand it and look and see kind of what the steps are. And then once you select a path, you'll actually navigate to that. And that's what takes you to what's called the career planner. At the top of the screen, we have a time cost earnings estimator that gives you an estimated and average time that it's going to take to get to your final dream job. And then also the estimated earnings that you're going to have along the way for your entire lifetime, as well as the cost. For those of you that have already gotten your ratings, or maybe in that initial entry job or intermediate job, you're going to have no costs associated with that. And you're also going to see a series of different modules, is what they call them. You wouldn't see the training modules that are displayed on my screen. And so as you go through, we have modules like paying for flight training. And there's all kinds of different options here: GI Bill, scholarships, and grant. And we link to a lot of resources that are there. And we give everything in a very condensed written content. And it links to other articles. So you can go deep, but you don't have to get too far into things. And it's not overwhelming, and there's not a contrary opinion every time you go to search something. Then you can pick a flight school. We evaluate and choose flight schools and give you all the pros and cons. And then we talk about all the different ratings and the requirements that you have with each rating that you have to do, as well as we go into the jobs, and we let you in this career planner choose any aviation job, and we give you those entry, intermediate, and retirement level jobs. And we talk about how much you would expect to fly in one, what are the pros and cons, and things to look out for and think about, and what the average salary that you could make. And so you go through and make these decisions and you change which one, and you'll see that that actually changes your estimated earnings and your estimated timeline. And we just talk about that, and all this information, the best part of it is it's all free. So this account, to anybody, you're going to get pathways, you're going to get estimated time, cost, and earnings, and you're going to get career planner. That's all free. We're not trying to make any money off of that. We provide a great value on that, and that will always be free. And then we have some additional features that we're working on. Timeline Assistant is already out. So if you're going to go ahead and do a military transition, you can select the date, and we give you almost 40 tasks that you need to do, complete with descriptions and links and things that you need to do to get that process started, as well as if you're earning your private pilot certificate or whatnot. And you can just track your progress there. Very convenient to track the progress as you do things and move along in your aviation career. We've got other features in the works, such as our scholarship directory that you can sort through. And then the best thing that I'm really excited to do is change the way that we're servicing our veterans. And so right now we have two accounts: our free account with the features I mentioned, and then Timeline Assistant and our scholarship directory, at least the expanded full version of that, is going to be our premium account, which is extra features, just a little bit paid per year. That's free for military. We've got a GovX integration. If you're military, you understand what I'm talking about with GovX. So GovX, if you have an account, you just log in. If you don't, you register. Anybody that's born after, that has gotten into the military after 2000, is in a DoD database, and it instantly verifies you. And you get a bunch of great discounts for Oakley's, North Face, Yeti, Garmin watches, all those different things. GovX has discounts for those, but it verifies your identity as a veteran. So whether you're ROTC, a cadet, whether you're retired, separated, or active duty, all those are encompassed, and you get the premium account for free. So you get even more features for free for our veterans, but even for our regular civilian pilots, it's still great free value. And we're just going to keep continuing to add features, and we're really excited about the service that we think we can provide.
No, that's excellent. I think what that does is it gives pilots the ability to absorb all that information in one place and make decisions, because we all know that getting your ratings initially and being qualified or competitive to go get your commercial and eventually your ATP, and then work your way to a job at a major airline as an airline pilot, where is really where the money is, if at all, especially. But we all know how fragile that industry is. We're experiencing that right now in 2020, and the military is always a good option, but being able to weigh that cost benefit analysis on how long it's going to take, how much it's going to cost you to get there, and then what you can expect in terms of a job. It doesn't make any sense going $100,000 in debt to come out and make $30,000 a year in the near term without a long-term plan to be able to recoup that. With all that said, let me ask you this. There's a lot of information that changes often, and a lot of it is tied to the FAA and regulations and FARs. So how do you maintain quality control and really keep a handle on that amount of information coming from different sources?
Well, as you know, Matt, we actually use one of your staff writers. Jason Depew is actually, a TPN faithful, and you've probably, if you're listening to this, you've definitely read probably either his book, you've been to his site, you've read his articles on either bogey dope or TPN. He's also helping us out in addition to being a million other things. Jason really does it all. And so he's kind of on a content contract with us to help QC and QA those as things do change. And one of the other things about the aviation community, if you say something wrong, someone's going to message you. So that also happens to fix itself, and is a staple of this community, is that you better not misquote a regulation, because it is a little self-policing. But yeah, we take that extremely seriously and try to keep it as up to date as we can with all the major changes that come out.
Sure, absolutely. No, that's good. And in terms of the growth, you kind of showed on the demo a few things that would expand on where you are right now in terms of different aspects of aviation and different career paths. What's the timeline and the horizon look like for that in terms of when you hope to roll out new features and different paths and those sorts of opportunities?
Right now. So I don't know how delayed the podcast will be in its drop, but potentially by the time it comes out, scholarships will actually be live. So that's going to be within the month, probably sometime around Halloween. And after that, we're just going to continue to iterate. So we're holding some focus groups with some of our current customers to kind of validate these ideas. And so what we really want to do is make sure the demand and the values there for our clients. So what I will say is if we can get a lot of people to sign up, that will be very helpful in guiding the direction that we have. But definitely within the next quarter, we plan to continue to roll out more features. And we've got a lot of exciting ideas in terms of things that we think are valuable for pilots in the long term, such as an application vault, something that you can go in and put in your current employment history, any traffic tickets you've had, stuff that's going to be really, really hard to find in 10 years when you're going for that major airline job or that EMS pilot job, things that you're going to wish that you had kept. So if you're in your pilot training and you start using this, you'll be extremely glad that you did. So that, and then potentially looking at some other features that provide value, such as a resume builder and things like that. So we're really excited. There's a million different directions that we can go, but we need the good listeners of TPN to sign up and kind of provide that feedback of what they think would be valuable. Because if you tell me what is valuable that you would pay for, we certainly can build it.
That's the entrepreneurial statement right there. So, in terms of demographics and where a pilot might be in their career right now, what's the sweet spot for where Pilot Pipeline is? What is your target audience at the moment, currently, right now, in October of 2020?
So right now, and I'll be careful when I say this because anyone that's listening that's more experienced than this, I don't want to discourage because it is valuable for everyone. And as we continue to add these features that we're talking about, it's going to continue to expand the reach and who's
Sure.
going to be really the audience. But our target demographic is someone that's either in flight training in college or that they're at their first or second job because they still have a really long time and they have a lot of decisions left to make. And that kind of extends all the way to someone who's maybe just gotten their RATP or ATP, and they're still making some decisions that we can help them. And it will become more beneficial to that demographic and beyond as we continue to develop other features. So it's really everybody, but if you're listening and you're in training or thinking about it, wow, we've got a solution that can really help make a difference right now for your choices. But I would encourage everybody to check it out and let us know what you think because there's some features on there that are applicable to everyone.
Absolutely. And, I know you're a fan too of Mark's book, Cockpit to Cockpit, which is just chock full of information that I wish I had known 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And I think a lot of what you're doing seems to be applicable in that realm to where you're trying to aggregate that information and give people the tools they need to build a plan going forward and make informed decisions. And I think working in conjunction with the kind of info that Jason gives in uh, Pilot Math Treasure Bath and Mark and Cockpit to Cockpit, and then all the way up through Chris Kresge at Milt ATP on the course that they offer for the military to airline transition course and all that sort of uh, those other companies that work with TPN and provide valuable resources like that. I think what you're doing fits in with that ecosystem quite nicely. And, a shout out to Bogey Dope. You mentioned John and his team as well. Bogey Dope is an excellent resource if you're looking for a guard or reserve unit, no matter what phase of your career you're in, whether it's Army, Air Force, or Navy, Coast Guard, doesn't really matter. I think he's got a lot of information to share on all of those. So, uh, in terms of how Pilot Pipeline helps prospective pilots and the industry as a whole. Can you talk a little bit about what your vision is for um, the value proposition, as it were, for Pilot Pipeline? So I'm a young pilot. I'm in training. I'm just getting started. What's the biggest value that I'm going to get out of this free resource at this moment?
Yeah, so the free resource, the biggest value that we try to capture is just that consolidation. There's thousands of pages of regulation. There's hundreds of training providers. There's dozens and dozens of employment opportunities. And you can spend, like I have, and I'm sure you have too, Matt, hundreds of hours on message boards and sites, and you get answers that are far left, you get answers that are far right. And this is a way to really focus on what matters, which is studying and flying. Maybe it's Microsoft Flight Sim, maybe it's getting in the books, emergency procedures, all those different things, rather than just surfing, because we consolidate and focus on what you need to do to get where you want to go. And so my dad has always told me, if you don't have a plan, you can plan to achieve nothing. So that's what we've done, is we've laid out a plan for you to get to where you want to go, which is a dream job. You can select that dream job, and it will help get you there quicker than you would have otherwise, and provide a lot of consolidated information that's verified that you'll enjoy. So that's really the value proposition that we bring, and the long-term vision of it. And one of the things I'm really excited by is, and this kind of can be a trigger word for some people, the pilot shortage, right? In the military and not in the military, there's a plethora of people that have commercial and ATP ratings, and they just don't fly because sometimes the money's not there. They went in and did other things. But the reality is if the wages continue to rise, some of those will come out and more people will enter the market. But we had a pilot shortage building before COVID, and I'm sure that it's discouraged some people from training, and it's push maybe more people in the military, whatever. I think coming out of it, we're going to be in a worse situation than we were before, as demand continues to increase, because the aviation industry is resilient. And so what we want to do is lower the barriers to entry for prospective pilots and people that are currently in the pilot pipeline, if you will. And so basically we want to be a small part of helping, grow the industry and solve that problem that's going to be very cyclical, but it will continue to occur, especially with the risk of automation and a dozen other things that we could talk about.
Absolutely. This too shall pass. This is not the first downturn in the market. And what better time? I'm giving a talk later this week about how to prepare and take this opportunity to take a look at where you are in your aviation career and what you can do to prepare yourself for 1 year, 5 year, 10 years down the line. And I think what you're building is a good step in that direction, if not a huge leap. So thank you so much, Rob, for being on the show and telling us all about what you're building. I can't wait to see how you grow and advise and have TPN be a part of this movement here. So if anyone wants to get a hold of you or check it out, what's the best way for them to do that?
The best way for them to do that is visit www.pilotpipeline.com, or you can email me at rob@pilotpipeline.com. And just a quick shout out, hey, if you're struggling for money for training, there's an Uncle Sam with many service branches that will gladly take you. The Army, you can fly a multi-million-dollar helicopter at 18 years old, street to seat warrant officer. We're the only service branch that has it. So come fly with us, fly Army.
Or Air Force, whatever. Yeah. Well, and as always, if you want to get in touch with Adam or myself, you can email us at heyguys@thepilotnetwork.org, or you can visit us at thepilotnetwork.com, and that'll have links to everything else. We're transitioning to the .com domain address now, so you can contact us there and see everything we're doing, from TPNX virtual to TPNQ, to our podcast, to the YouTube channel, and everything in between. So a huge thanks to you, Rob, and a shout out to your crew and everyone else. And until next time, keep the shiny side up and the dirty side down. Fly safe, everybody. Bye-bye.